This video will contain possible spoilers for TV shows right now. Thank you. Hello everyone, this is Dragon Bales ready to do another top 10 list before October. Now I know some of you are still in the quarantine blues, and I'm pretty sure there are some of you who still undergo characters that are in a horrible or sad situations where you can't help but cry, "You deserve better than this!" and want to hug them immediately at the screen. Sometimes the situation is based on the influence of a writer. Sometimes it's the influences of other characters within the show. So the topic I'm going over are top 10 TV characters who have been through so much emotional pain you can't help but feel like just want to reach into the screen and hug them and tell them everything's going to get better. And hopefully by next year, the same thing will happen. Whoa! Okay, I understand the controversy with this particular character, but please hear me out. Okay, I know many of you have a lot of mixed feelings of Pink Diamond, especially after Steven Universe Future, but bear in mind, we're only just learning about her through reverse. So you see, she was always looked down upon by her fellow Diamonds, including none other than White Diamond herself. She was viewed as a weak diamond incapable of doing any hardships, and she was always mentally, physically, and emotionally abused. This resulted in her being abusive towards others in return. Again, abuse is a very hard cycle to break. And of course, with Pink, she may not have been very cruel, but it didn't justify some things, which is why I put her number 10, because even though she did some horrible things, she shouldn't have been this. She shouldn't have to go through all that abuse to become this cruel and messed up. We always remember Steven as that lovable goofball who'll always lend a hand whenever possible. But over time, all of the stuff he's been through, learning about his mom's past as well as trying to fix all of her mistakes by himself, as well as trying to patch up the Gems' relationship with each other after Rose Quartz / Pink Diamond died, it was a lot for a boy his age to take on, and this resulted in him having emotional as well as physical scars in the process. And this resulted in him having to deal with the fact that he may never get in peace with his mother. He doesn't know how to feel about her. And of course, after all of that hell he's been put through, he feels like he wants to punish every person who dealt it with him, whether it be Greg or White Diamond. This was hard for him to deal with, and he didn't know how to move on from that pain. Especially it was evident in Steven Universe Future. He just didn't know how to communicate his problems well enough, and Greg and the Crystal Gems didn't exactly know how to address the situations because they were in their own funk at the time of the beginning of the series. So of course Steven became this depressed by the time Steven Universe Future happened. Thankfully though, there was one person who was willing to help him through all of that and seemed to get on his level. Connie was practically the ideal friend and lover that Steven needed to help him cope with all of his emotional growth as well as his physical growth. It wasn't easy for him to relate to others, but at least he had someone he could lean on, especially when it came to the season finale of the final episodes of Steven Universe Future, and which is why I find them to be one of my favorite couples in the show. But I put him on this list because he always has very supportive characters to help him with his emotional pain. Luz, in my personal opinion, is one of the best characters in the Owl House. You see, in the beginning, she starts off as like your average girl. She loved anime, she loved to get creative, but she had a hard time fitting in because her antics can get a little out of hand. Granted, there are some concerns about how she views safety, but yet at the same time, you do feel a little bad for her, especially when you see the relationship she has with her mom. I'm not saying it's toxic or anything, it's just I feel like Luz just feels alone in the world, as well as the fact that she just struggles with the self-value that she has for herself. And that's when she meets Ida and King, she soon begins to open herself up. But it didn't change the fact that as we got to learn more about Luz, we do start to feel bad for her, even though she was outwardly perky and energetic and willing to put everything on the line to help her friends. She still had that sense of insecurity and feeling like she's worth nothing to people. And that's something we can all relate to every once in a while. And she's a bit like Steven, which is a bit of a strong parallel, because those two are very optimistic and try to help people whenever possible. But I put her number 8 because she struggles more with relationships than Steven does. For Steven, making friends it comes a bit natural to him, but with Luz, it's just a little harder. And she wants to find more self in her values and trying to gain powers that she was never born with. And this is why, again, I put her number 8, because she just needs a hug every once in a while. If many of you had seen my first Dark Crystal video, you would understand of why I still think Skektek is the most sympathetic of the Dark Crystal Skeksis. He has been through a lot, emotionally and physically. He was practically bullied to figure out a solution to the problem that the Skeksis are dealing with. Not only that, yep, ladies and gentlemen, that's something that Skektek had to deal with a lot on a daily basis. Being bullied and picked on by all of his peers for being the weakest of the group. And not only that, but he just struggles with getting the love that he deserved, up to the point where he was viciously betrayed by Skeksil and lost an eye in the process. This abuse over time, on top of the Urskek thing, it really makes us feel so bad for him. He's still a warped evil creature, but you could sort of say he's the least evil out of all the crew. He may not, and he definitely shows he's not too proud of it himself. He's the only one who ever recognizes the damage that's being done with Thra, but he hardly has the courage to speak up about it. And this is why I put him number 7 on the list, because he was still an antagonist, but one that we'd sympathize with the most. Yes, folks, I put Izuku Midoriya on the list, and for a very good reason. All his life he just wanted to be a hero. And then one day his world came crashing down upon learning the fact that he was born quirkless, which was 20% of the population itself. And this resulted in a very heartbreaking time for him, especially now that upon learning it from his peers, he was always constantly bullied and picked on because he had no powers at that point. It was always a constant battle for Deku to try to keep his head up while everyone else wanted to keep him down. However, despite all that, and before losing all hope, he finally meets All Might, who actually saw the decent person that we all knew him to be. Even though some people had issues with him being a crybaby, it never erased the fact of how much of a kind-hearted hero and his enthusiastic nature he could be. And also I put him at number 6 on the list because it still didn't change the fact that despite his the uplifting encouragement and the capability of finding friends and allies, we still feel a little bit bad for Izuku having to deal with the majority of his childhood being lonely because he had no power whatsoever. And we just can't help but want to give that precious cinnamon roll a hug. Bubbly Toru Honda was always optimistic and had a smile on her face. But like most characters we see that deserve better on this list, she's not without flaws and problems. You see, she always tries to help out people to the extent of her own health, which results in her having a fever. But that's usually one of the biggest problems that she has to deal with. She can't, like Steven Universe, she can't exactly communicate her feelings and her wants and needs. It's like she's avoiding them completely. And part of her reason why she has that issue is because both of her parents are dead. When she was 3 or 4, her father died, and then her mom died in a car accident just when she was starting out in high school. And that's pretty painful for someone her age had to deal with, and plus being without a home. To make matters worse, the rest of the Honda family, with the exception of Toru's grandfather, always give her a hard time because of her mom's past. You see, Kyoko Honda was once a gang member, a member of a gang, and always did things that she regrets. And now she's trying to move on, but everyone seems to not want to deal with her ex-mob deal and never recognize her as a mom who's just trying her hardest. Poor Toru was always picked on a lot by her own family members and her classmates. Thankfully, though, I put her this far up on the list on the account that Kyo and Yuki and the rest of the Soma family are there to support her emotionally and mentally. But still didn't change the fact of the amount of pain that Toru has to deal with. The fact that she's growing up with her father and not really connecting with him, and also having to deal with going on without her mother and learning of how to do her own wants and desires without having a proper grown-up around. And that's very painful for Toru to deal with. Can I say that Deed is probably a big fan favorite amongst the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance crew? She is just so lovable around everyone she meets. Her expressive eyes, her kind smile, and her gentle nature and her gentle approach to things is just something that we just love and adore about her. Even when people be mean to her, she's practically wanting nothing more than to be friends. She's such an unprejudiced heart, and I do enjoy her as well. She also has that capability of being friends with anyone and everything. She doesn't have a single hatred bone in her body. She would even befriend a podling, even at the extent of her own being. I even enjoyed her relationship with Rian, and I wanted to see more of that. Deep was always someone who would help people cry whenever they're through a very emotional, painful time. And with Rian, Deep was someone that he had to rely on, practically his rock when things went hard for him, especially towards the tail end of the series. Unfortunately, the reason why I put her on this list is because when she was given the power from the Sentry Tree, she also had visions of her being turned evil, and that's definitely a disturbing concept we didn't want to deal with. But in the ultimate sacrifice, by the final episode, she was fully consumed by the darkening, and at the tail end of episode 10, had to walk into the forest, never to be seen or heard from anyone again. Even the look in her eyes, you could definitely tell that she was pained to do goodbye. And I put her on this list because of the fact that Dark Crystal has been cancelled on Netflix. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this year, 2020, has been the worst year of all time. Netflix, just why? Why would you do it to our dear characters in the show? Then there's Claudia. Claudia is also a big concern of mine in the Dragon Prince franchise. In the beginning, she was always so bubbly and filled with jokes, but she had a hard past. Her mom left her when she was young, and Soren then left her with only a choice that she had to deal with herself, and then had to be forced to revive her dad because she didn't want to lose any more family. The sad reality is, she doesn't realize of how dark that her path is starting to become. She's so consumed with fear of losing her family that she's not paying attention to the extent of what her father is doing is wrong. Even she's not understanding why Soren left. And this is definitely where we're scared for her because her fate is still unknown. And we don't know if she'll finally be killed off by the dark magic or if she will take a much darker path by the end of season 4. Uh-oh. If you're wondering what this is, these are tears from the Twice fans. And let me tell you, they're not going to let up that easily. The reason why I put him in number 2 on this list is because of his tragic backstory and the tragic ordeals he has to deal with throughout the series. Outwardly, he appears like a normal guy, but he suffers a split personality disorder, which was a result of when his quirk had gone south. He was practically the unluckiest man in the world. He lost his parents when he was in middle school and had no one to go on to help him to get through life on his own. He even had issues making friends when he was young. Heck, the only friend he had was Himiko Toga, someone who actually accepted him for who he is and tried to help him when things got rough. Toga was the only person who actually comforted him when he felt guilty about what he had done. And of course, it led to the point where he risked his life to try to save Himiko Toga from being beaten to death, or worse off, nearly had her head popped off by Skeptic, and tried to fight them off, which resulted in the Sad Man Parade. And trust me, I was relieved that he wasn't killed off in the Liberation Army arc, but unfortunately, sometimes good things don't last forever. And this is the case with Twice. During the war arc, Twice was finally facing off with Hawks, and unfortunately he had no one to help him out of his sticky situation. He was once again putting his trust in someone who was sinister. And let me know, this time it wasn't Twice's fault, it was Dobby's. That still didn't change the fact that Twice was just a good person who suffered so much misfortune and just deserved so much better than what was offered to him. And this is why I put him at number 2. I wasn't a big fan of Doctor Who, but the tragic backstory behind Doctor Who is practically so sad that I just had to put it in there. Throughout the entire plot of the series, we see Doctor Who going through reincarnation after reincarnation, protecting the Earth from alien races that are trying to destroy it or trying to destroy the universes. And along the way, he also has endless battles with enemies like the Silence and the Angels, and worst, the Intelligence. He practically had to deal with them all, and sometimes lost some of his companions along the way. You could sort of say that this sci-fi/fantasy series is practically nothing but pain. This poor guy/girl is now having to go through time and space just to protect all life from vanishing forever, and while watching all of the friends that have been happening throughout their life go turn to dust. It's just unbearable, and you felt like he just deserves a better ending than always having to watch people die or having to continue life without him. You just can't help but feel like he just deserves more than was BBC being offered. And that's why I feel like it just has to stop. I mean, don't get me wrong, Doctor Who has some interesting plots, but sometimes you just need to know when to stop making characters, even fictional ones, to stop suffering. And this is why I put him at number 1. So folks, this is it for this video. If you know any characters that just deserve better than this, please let me know. Also, feel free to comment as well as subscribe and do a like. And see you guys later for Halloween. This is Dragon Videos signing off.